Rewritten! Air. Air. He was breathing. He could breathe. Where was Jasper? His thoughts rippled and twitched, confusion swirling through them. He had to wake up. She was right there. It wasn't too late. He had to wake up. He reared up fiercely against the sticking tendrils of unconsciousness, his gem's light throbbing through him to help, frantically reaching out, reaching. Wake up! Stephen woke up to the view of 5 pairs of eyes, minus 1 for volleyball, staring down at him expectantly. His whole body jerked upwards, a cry escaping from him as he shook away the dizzying nightmare that had spiked through his head. Jasper, where was Jasper? He had to tell her. Stephen, you're okay! Spinel cheered. Oh, thank goodness he's all right, White sighed. His hand flew back to his throat, gasping in and out desperate gulps of air. The swelling was gone. But where was Jasper? She was right there a second ago. He had to try and explain himself, to at least tell her that he didn't mean to. His memory returned in a spark. Jasper was in the ground, wrapped in a towel. He couldn't say sorry. Despite all the relieved people around him to see him awake, Stephen felt worse than ever now that he was conscious. Stephen, are you feeling better? White was asking him. Are you doing the breathing thing now? He blinked, abruptly snapping back to reality. What? He began, still shocked, before slowly processing what she just said. Stephen? No, I'm White and you're Stephen. I thought we sorted that out already, the glimmering monarch explained simply. Wait, you did? Stephen gasped. Yes, and we're so sorry, Blue whispered guiltily, wiping at her eyes. Trying to force you to be pink was vile. We should have listened to you, Stephen, Yellow added. White nodded. Pink is gone, but you're still here, and we have to love being with you instead of wishing that she could be here instead. I'm so sorry for trying to change you. You should live out your own life on Earth, not drag it out here. Stephen was so shocked about what he was hearing that he thought that he was still hallucinating. When did this happen? The diamonds had never been more accepting. It felt like a dream. How? He trailed off, speechless. Spinel seemed to read the stunned look on his face. She told him simply, We talked it out. Thank you, Stephen stammered slowly. What did Spinel say that was more clear to them than what he'd tried? What had he done wrong? He thought that he should just be glad about this progress, but instead he just felt like a failure. Stephen didn't have any time to think about that, because there were still hundreds of other problems that were building up a considerably sized pile in the back of his head. He had to fix what he had called the meeting for first. What had that even been? Oh, right. Spinel and opinions of Pink Diamond. He began to try and stand, still shaky and lightheaded. Everything hurt. Okay, Stephen began hazily, trying to shake away the fatigue as he rose unsteadily. We gotta start over. I feel bad. Did he say that out loud? The entirety of his self-control wasn't able to stop his knees from giving out from beneath him. Luckily, Spinel was there in an instant, her rubbery arms catching him before he fell. Careful, Stephen, take it easy, she warned, slowly lowering him back to the floor. How's about you just sit down for a second? Thank you, but I'm fine, Stephen insisted, pushing against her arms and trying to plant his feet to stay standing where he was, willing himself to stop swaying. He noted that Spinel still didn't let go, like she expected for him to black out again. He held his head, trying to think clearly through the mist that had invaded his mind after nearly suffocating to death. Of course, it wasn't just that. He was exhausted, even though he tried not to show it. A nasty headache had burrowed itself into his skull, trying to distract him. And, of course, he was still pinched harshly with the same hunger that he'd dragged from yesterday, the thirst coming back too, and the crippling pains were incredibly distracting. He felt stupid to have not grabbed a bite before going to Homeworld. He guessed, in retrospect, he was still in shock by then, but he could have at least thought a few hours into the future and connected the dots that he'd be on the Gems planet all day with nothing. He cursed himself for being a feeble, needy human, wishing that he was able to run off light energy like the Gems could. Despite the fact that he usually resented his Gem half, this time he wished that he was full Gem. Then he could keep on fixing things forever without stopping to eat or drink or sleep. He'd get so much done. But, in reality, he was slowly being worn down, like a pencil being sharpened too many times. He needed to rest, and soon. But not now. He still had to fix this. It was too important. He forced his eyes to focus, looking up at the diamonds. He wheezed, We have to start over with this whole conversation. It got too out of hand. What? No. Forget our silly little quarrel, White insisted. We need to figure out what happened to you. Huh? But that doesn't matter anymore. I'm fine now, Stephen said, trying his best to look as put together as possible. You guys are more important. Stephen, you almost died, Spinel told him seriously. Something is happening to you. We're gonna figure out what it is and fix it. Why did you start glowing and choking? Do you know what happened? Volleyball asked. All at once, he felt every thought inside of him collapse. Jasper, he blurted out before snapping his mouth shut with 2 hands. As an instant reaction, he felt the warmth flaring out of his gem, the pink color shimmering back over his skin for what felt like the 100th time. He yelped in fear, staring at his hands in horror before scrambling back away from them, out of the coils of Spinel's arms. No, he was going to... Which Jasper? What about her? Yellow was prompting. Nothing! Everything's fine! Stephen yelled, staggering. Just stay away from me! We can't just stay away. We have to help you, Spinel said, still following him. Tell us what happened. Yeah, Stephen, a hulking, shadowy orange figure hissed. Tell them. No! Stephen backed away, swiping out at the figure until he realized that it didn't exist at all, heaving with breaths. No, don't make me, please! Stephen! Spinel yelped, darting forwards and catching him as he teetered back, saving him again from collapsing. Stephen, just stop for a second, Spinel demanded, her looping arms both keeping him from falling and also keeping him from escaping. He tried to get out of the tangles of rope-like limbs, but he was caught helplessly like a bug in a spider's web. Terror shot through him, and he felt his gem's power rearing up as a reaction. It wanted to attack Spinel, to force her to let go. He was dangling over the edge of a massive injector drill, nose broken and bleeding onto his tongue and an iron tang, held only by Spinel's clenched fist into his left jacket sleeve, miles and miles of death below him, her snarling glare searing like fire, the hate so strong, unquenchable. No, it wasn't real. This was no time to get stuck in a flashback. He shoved it down desperately, not wanting to make this all worse. He was too dizzy to think of a way to flee without hurting her. So much was happening all at once, and now this, and he didn't know how to stop it all in time. Calm down, Spinel told him in the real world, approaching cautiously. Look, whatever it is, we can take care of it. We want to help you. He was trapped. He needed to tell them. He couldn't stand another second keeping the secret inside of him. It felt painful, only growing worse and worse, a screaming that he couldn't keep quiet anymore. And the screaming was now raking up his throat, clawing its way out of his mouth, screeching up with an undeniable truth. I shattered Jasper! His head was thrown down, eyes shut. He was glowing pink again. He didn't need to see it to know. He didn't look up at them. He just knew that he couldn't bear another moment like this. He spilled everything to them, without even thinking. It was an accident. We were fighting. I didn't mean to. I tried to bring her back with your healing bottles. Nothing worked. I haven't told anybody. I just buried her and came here. I don't know what to do. I'm so afraid I'll do it again. He breathed in and out, shivering and sobbing again, his hands having found their way to his shimmering pink curls of hair, pulling sharply just to feel something other than remorse. My powers keep reacting to my stupid emotions. I can't control them at all anymore. And now it's killing people. That's why I came here, for help. I thought that maybe you guys would know how to fix this, since you have the diamond powers too. He felt a coldness creeping through his chest, crawling through every vein. His mouth was rambling on, even though it knew that this wouldn't fix it, that this wouldn't explain it all, that he would never be able to thaw the ice. I'm so sorry, I never wanted this to happen, I never wanted any of this to happen, I don't know what's happening to me, something's inside of my brain, it won't leave me alone, it makes me think horrible things, it makes me do horrible things, and now I can't fix it. I can't fix her. I can't fix me. There was a long, awful silence. Stephen shivered out in the open, feeling as if he'd been stripped naked for everyone to see, assaulted with everything all at once, with nothing to defend himself. The world was ending, and all he could do was stand there, held down with Spinel's hands, waiting for them to release their wrath upon him. He expected them to be mad, to yell at him and lock him up. Or, if they wouldn't do that, they would run and go tell everyone what he'd done. But instead, Yellow just said, Is that really it? Is that what you've been worrying about? Shattering a gem? Stephen's eyes snapped open and he stared up at her open-mouthed, unable to believe it. The diamonds looked entirely unconcerned with the horrible confession he just hurled at them, as if he simply informed them of a broken crayon. Of course! Stephen squealed, upset. Oh, Stephen, you don't have to worry one bit about that, Yellow dismissed. All three of us shattered loads of gems before, and if you were fighting, I'm sure that you have the right to do everything you could to stop her from hurting you. Stephen just blinked up at her, his thoughts jutting past each other jerkily like a malfunctioning machine, not knowing how to react at all. But I killed her, Stephen objected. I didn't want to, I didn't mean to, it just happened. I don't want it to happen again. How do I stop my powers? Well, if the problem is you being scared of your emotions activating your powers, then just stop being scared and the cycle will break, Yellow shrugged. Simple fix. How do I stop being scared? Stephen asked. I can't just turn it off. It sounds like to me that the most of this is just you being scared of you, Yellow explained. Just stop doing that and then you'll take away the biggest problem. But I can't just stop being scared. I'm not choosing to be like this. Why would I do this on purpose? Stephen's pink glow was shimmering brighter and brighter, every vein throbbing with blood, terror only spawning more terror over and over again. I'm gonna hurt people. I'm gonna ruin all their lives. How could I ever stop being scared of that? I wish I didn't have my diamond powers. I wish they wouldn't attack the moment I got even a little anxious. Look, there, you're doing it again. Yellow's voice was loud and booming, only frightening him more. You're the only one that's doing that to you. Yellow, stop it. You're making him worse. Blue interrupted, pushing her away. It doesn't work like that for everybody. Just because you're not suffering doesn't mean he's not. The calmer monarch addressed Stephen in a softer tone. I think I know how to help. What you need is emotional balance. Luckily, that's something that I have a trick for. Really? Stephen sniffed, hope glimmering in his crackled voice. Spinel slowly began to loosen her arms, letting him go, allowing him to stand on his own. Blue nodded and said, My magic can make people sad, but it can also make them happy. It's all about hormones. Do it, please, Stephen nodded desperately. I'll try anything. So, as he requested, Blue Diamond lowered a giant azure hand, lightly tapping the top of his head. The change was immediate, and such a shocking difference that he felt locked in place for the first few seconds. It felt like a gentle wave washing through him, pushing everything aside for later. He hadn't even realized how clenched up he had been until he relaxed, every muscle loosening like a tight rubber band being moved back to its normal shape without the harsh snap. Even the pink glow faded, like it had never been there. Whoa, was all he could say. He was so surprised because he'd almost forgotten what this felt like. In fact, he couldn't remember the last time he'd been this calm. Along with the peace came drowsiness. He wasn't focused on fighting against the pull of fatigue anymore, so now it was drooping his eyelids, slowing his heartbeat, pulling on his limbs, forcing out a tired yawn. Stephen hadn't slept in days, and only now was he relaxed enough to realize how agitated and paranoid it was making him. He wanted to curl up right there on the table and not wake up for a century, like he could nap away all of his problems. Maybe if he slept long enough, he'd wake up happy again, and everything would be normal, and he wouldn't have to worry anymore. There we go, Blue sighed, sitting back and smiling in her accomplishment. Problem solved. But after the initial tide had gone out, Stephen was beginning to have his doubts. It didn't matter if he ignored it. The problems were still there, hiding inside of him for now, just waiting until their cage was left unlocked again. This isn't right. He shook his head, the giddiness rubbing harshly against confusion. What's wrong? Blue asked with a tilt of her chin. I don't want to feel better. I want to be better, he said, already feeling the creeping fear overpowering the happiness, regaining its strength and pushing back sharply. Me being happy won't fix this, at least not permanently. I'm still half diamond, I still had to fix Pink's mistakes, and my gem still thinks I'm gonna die 24/7. I'm still dangerous. Spinel sighed, grumbling, If Pink just thought about someone other than herself for once, you'd be fine right now. Excuse me? Blue gasped in astonishment. What? I'm just saying what happened, Spinel retorted sassily. I bet Stephen's gem is acting up because he fought his whole childhood for his mom, and now it doesn't know how to live any differently. Actually, that's exactly what Dr. Maheshwaran said, Stephen remarked, recalling what the doctor had said during his examination a while ago. How'd you guess that? Context clues, Spinel explained simply. Besides, you kinda cried a lot about your whole life being just fixing stuff over and over again whenever I tried to kill you because of Pink. Oh, right, I forgot about that, Stephen mumbled, absently rubbing his left hand's wrist with the shuffle to his feet. Pink was a good gem. She would never do anything like that to Stephen, Blue said tearfully. She didn't do it on purpose. She was just too lazy to take responsibility, so she left him to pick up the pieces instead. Spinel huffed crossly. She's not as perfect as you think she is. Blue's hand was over her mouth, her eyes shadowed in disbelief and despair. She looked tearful, and Yellow did not like that. Spinel, you are out of line, the giant golden monarch boomed, making the tiny pink gem shrink back. You're going back in the tower at once. No, wait, Stephen hollered, jumping to defend her. You can't put her in there, that's not fair! It is fair. Why? Because I said so. But I'm not budging on this one, Yellow said firmly. Spinel needs to learn to respect Pink if she wants to live with us. Before Stephen could summon up a retaliation, Volleyball stopped him, leaning forwards and stammering. Wait, Yellow Diamond, you can't do that. She's terrified of it. And if it's anything like... She glanced over at Stephen, reaching her hand up to her cracked eye. Like how I feel, then I don't think she deserves it. Volleyball stared down at the floor, blinking several times, thinking deeply. She looked back up and said, I don't know what Pink did after I became a puppet, but if it had this effect on Spinel and Stephen, it must have been bad. I'm beginning to think that Pink might have not been the best person. She looked even less certain of her words, but the diamonds didn't lash out at her. She was a bit irrational, White admitted slowly. And childish, Yellow nodded. We tried to fix her, but I don't think we knew what we were doing. Not helping for sure, Blue muttered, before choking up with, Oh, we messed her up somehow, didn't we? Why else would she run away? Her head was in her hands, while the other diamonds glanced away, in a silent agreement. We were terrible parents, White said blankly, after a while. Volleyball looked up towards Spinel, who appeared so confused to be supported by her of all people. She told her, I'm sorry for getting mad at you. Only you know how it felt to go through your experience. I shouldn't blame you for it. Spinel's face broke into a smile. She reached out her gloved hands, and the two little pink gems hugged each other tightly. When they broke away, Spinel chuckled. I wish we were all this honest before. This is like the most progressive conversation I've had with y'all. Yeah, Stephen whispered, feeling as if he was observing them through a glass wall as he watched them clean up their faces and accept what he'd been trying to tell them for years. It is. So why was he feeling so upside down about it? He should be feeling relieved, but instead he was only turning to himself, asking himself questions that he had no answers to. He was messing it up so badly. Why? They made more progress whenever he was unconscious than whenever he was awake. They had solved everything that he wanted to solve, and even more, while he just kept his big mouth shut. He stared around at their content faces as they all looked back towards him, happy again. Talking it out with his enemies used to be one of his biggest strengths, but this time it had only turned into a screaming match. They didn't need him at all. I, for one, have a suggestion that I've been thinking about, White began, breaking him out of his darkening thoughts. I'm the oldest and most powerful gem in all of existence, and I've never felt the way you do about being dangerous. Maybe we can switch up some perspectives and hope you catch on? Stephen felt like she was hinting at something, but he didn't know what she was talking about. Huh? What do you mean? You know how I can mind control other gems? White asked, leaning down. Well, I can make it work the other way, too. Her wicked black nail soared down and jabbed him in the stomach, far too close to his gem for his liking. Though the movement was meant to be playful, Stephen felt a flash of fear snapping and crackling over his thoughts, knocking everything off course in one big burst. An expansive gray throne room, her slender white fingers closing around him, her sinister voice crawling from her dark painted lips, the maliciously hooked black talons reaching down towards his exposed gem, reaching. Stephen shuddered violently, pushing the finger away, trying to blink away the memories. Was that really necessary? He'd been thrown out of his train of thought, just like with Spinel, and he hated himself for it. Why did his memories have to distract him so much? He was fine. It had literally nothing to do with what was happening. It was just disrupting him even more, making all of this way harder than it needed to be. He had to focus. What were they doing? Oh, yeah, solutions. It took a good few seconds to round up his scattered thoughts. Stephen was still confused as he rubbed the spot that she had poked. What do you mean? White giggled, unaware of what she'd caused, her lips curling into a bubbly grin. Oh, I'll just show you. This'll be fun! Stephen only had time to shoot a puzzled look at Spinel, who looked just about as excited as White was, before a feeling like 1,000 spiraling colors flashed through his mind all at once. He felt like he was traveling 1,000,000 miles an hour and standing still at the same time, a lurch in his gut yanking him upwards higher and higher before thrusting him down again, spinning and spinning and spinning towards a blinding white light. And then he snapped into sleep, awaiting for this new trick to be revealed.